Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I am your host today, Nathaniel. I am so pleased to welcome our special guest, Lyn Delmastro-Thomson, who is a confident expression activator. She is a trauma-informed visibility mentor using her signature unmuted method. She blends energetics, somatics, and hypnosis to help sensitive, soul-led leaders stop being the best-kept secret. I love that line, Lyn. And she has an uncanny gift for spotting the energetic root of a visibility block and transmuting it fast. What others take months to unpack, she helps shift in minutes so female founders feel safe being seen, sharing their full magic, and attracting dream clients without frying their nervous system. I love that. Such a clear, concise bio. Lyn, I don't usually read people's bios on here, as I mentioned to you, but I can tell you've done a lot of the work on clarifying exactly what you do and who you help. It's an honor to have you on the show. I'd just like to invite you to share more about who you are and why do you do what you do.
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm excited to
Welcome.
be here. And I'd love to just kind of start with a little bit of a story, which is kind of why visibility really matters to me. And so my story begins with me hiding in plain sight. And this wasn't me hiding on a stage or on a microphone, it wasn't even me being on a Zoom networking call. We're going to go back in time. We're going to go back to my 10th grade history class. And I was in this oversized hoodie. I was just like, pulled the hoodie so tight, like trying to hide. The room was about 80 degrees warm, and I'm like sweating profusely. I'm slouched down in my seat so far that I almost fall out of the chair. And I'm just praying that my teacher, who was actually my favorite teacher, wouldn't call on me. And you might think that maybe, oh, she didn't know the answer or she didn't study for the test or whatever. And it had nothing to do with that. It actually had to do with the fact that there were these boys in the class that were on the high school debate team. And they had this practice of like when somebody would give an answer, they would take that answer and they would twist it into a debate.
Mm.
And to my young self, that actually felt like this nervous system attack. I didn't think it was fun. I didn't think it was joking. I was like, oh my God, this is terrifying. These boys are going to full on attack me. And
Mm.
so I would sit there in class and, my palms would be all sweaty, my throat would be all tightened up. And I was just like, please, please, please don't notice me. Don't call on me. And that was really my strategy for survival for a lot of years growing up, because I didn't just experience bullying when I was in high school history class. I actually started to be bullied when I was a fairly young child in elementary school. And I learned in that experience that being different, because I was a girl, I was really smart and good at school, and I was also a different religion than most of the people where I grew up. All of those things kind of put a big target on my back and made me feel really unsafe. And so it was the beginning of this process of just learning to hide who I really was, just shrink really small and just not shine my light in the world. And that pattern really carried forward to when I started a business, which I started a business about 16 years ago. So I remember when I first would go out and I would try to talk about what I did, and I was doing healing work. And I was so nervous introducing myself at these networking events. I mean, we're not talking about, again, getting on a stage and like talking to a room full of 100 people. We're talking like a 20 person room group, introducing myself for 30 seconds. Total complete panic for me. And so even when I would get the words out too, it would be like I would sanitize everything I said about myself. I didn't really show who I was. So as I said, I was doing energy work, but I tried to make it sound like really scientific. I would hide the woo, which is again challenging to do when you do energy work. And, nobody knew who I really was. And I thought when I started my business that that was, kind of the way to go, that was working. And then suddenly I kind of realized, this actually isn't really working for me. And the reason that I'm not being successful in my business isn't because I didn't spend enough money on a website, or, I'm charging the wrong price, or I don't know who I want to help. It was because if people can't see you, how can they know you're the person for them? So there was a moment about 9 years ago when I went to this women's event. It was like a conference in the town I was living in. And I had this very brave moment when the host of that event gave the opportunity for people to speak on stage for 5 minutes. And the part of me who was always hiding for my whole life was terrified and was like, "What are you doing?" And then this other part raised her hand and was like, "No, I need to do this. I need to be on this stage and take this chance." And in that moment of raising my hand, walking up to the stage and just like allowing myself to do this, I realized that all of the things that I'd been using with my clients, all of these tools that were nervous system tools, breath work, my experience as a dancer for years, which for me, like growing up, that was the only way I felt safe being seen, performing. They just kind of dropped in all of a sudden, like walking up to the stage. And I was like, oh, I feel my body. I feel my breath. And I knew that I was still going to probably have my voice wobble and shake and crack like it always did. Like I wasn't delusional thinking this was going to be some perfect experience. But because I was able to drop into my body, like I had a completely different experience. And for me, I think the key thing of this journey was at the end, I had, I'd shared with the room, and then these women came up to me. And instead of being mocked like I was in high school or being afraid that, people would reject me, I had these amazing women saying, "Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Like, thank you for sharing your heart with the room." And that, like, it healed the younger me. And it also helped me realize that, visibility is so important. It's so key when we're trying to grow a business or just even to show up in the world, however that looks for us. And that I could, I wasn't like flying blind. I had all of these tools in my tool belt that I could pull out and I could use. And that's really become kind of the foundation of the work that I do with people is I've taken all of the healing work that I've done over the years, and now I've brought it into this arena of talking about visibility and how we can actually feel safe. Because for me, it was like this experience for years of having coaches tell me, you just have to push yourself. You have to fake it till you make it. Just do it. And that never worked for me because my nervous system was like, nope, not safe, hitting the brake constantly. So what I do with people is really about helping them feel safe. It's not pushing through and fake it till you make it. It's actually meeting the part of you who's scared to be seen.
I think there's so much value and gold and wisdom what you just shared, and I feel like it resonates for so many people who are um, gifted and sensitive and energetically attuned, Lynn. And I just want to, express my gratitude to you for having the bravery to put up your hand. I feel like the more of us that shine our light in this world, who have these gifts, who do speak out, it just creates, more invitation and permission for others to do it. And it also just makes our world a brighter place. And, I've heard this over and over again. There is, you know, a lot of people who have made success in the world have found a certain way, and then they teach that way as if that's the way. And for a lot of people, that's just not the case, whether they're neurodivergent or just, have a different kind of makeup or a different sole purpose. I mean, aggressive marketing tactics and like just pushing through is a very masculine focus, whereas, the divine feminine is very magnetic and it has clear boundaries. It's I mean, when people think magnetism, they always think like attraction, but there's also repulsion there, and there's an awareness, a distinction, keeping the child safe and growing the child is part of that domain. So I really appreciate that. And now, so the work that you're doing, you're sounds like you're helping other women to do the same thing and to share and be vulnerable. And tell us more about the unmute technique and how you like to work with people.
Yeah, so my signature method, as you mentioned, is called the unmuted method, and we really work on multiple different layers. So we're working, with nervous system regulation to create I use what I call my safe to be seen nervous system tools and practices, which kind of hold us, before we're actually taking that step, during, as I was stepping onto the stage, basically, and then after too, because I think for a lot of us too, we need that recovery after a pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit and not just being like, okay, well, that's done. And, then there's the part of us that needs soothing. So that's kind of one layer
Mm.
of the puzzle. I work a lot on also healing trauma because I think there's a lot of visibility wounds and trauma that especially sensitive beings, which is, who I feel drawn to work most with, other healers, people who are visionaries. We've all had experiences, whether that's like I did, where we were bullied, or there's other reasons that that doesn't feel safe. Again, we can't just kind of bypass those things that have happened to us in our past. We really need to kind of honor those parts and heal them on all levels. I would say mental, emotional, energetic. Like that is definitely part of what I work with people on as well. And then I also work a lot with the subconscious mind. So I'm a hypnotist as well. And so we work on kind of reprogramming the mind to kind of make it possible to see, yeah, I can step out there and I can believe that it's possible for me. My message matters because a lot of us
Mm.
have these conditioned beliefs, right? Where it's like, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or somebody else can say it better, or, just all of these things that have been layered on. And we need to kind of peel back those layers and really embody like what it is that we want, which is, there are people out there who really need to hear what you have to say.
Mm. Yeah, no, I 100%. And I feel like too, you're reminding me of a video that Michael Eisenstein put out there, that we ignite one another. So that needing to be seen, I feel like is so reflective of generally the hero's journey that we all have, the soulful self, our true self wants to radiate its true nature, which I feel is the highest form of love. And in however way that comes across, for some people it's painting, like you said. Some people are healers, some people are visionaries, some people are drawn to expressive arts or public speaking or any domain really. I mean, and the you know, I mean, let's face it, this is not uh, necessarily a healthy society for, especially for energetically sensitive people to have the courage. And it actually resonates deeply with my heart. It's taken me almost 2 decades to speak more publicly about my own direct experiences, and I still have difficulty with this. I come from a very secular background. I was I think my parents were following suit. My mom wanted me to be baptized when I was a baby into her French Catholic church, but I was rejected because she had been previously um, divorced without annulment. And so the church rejected me from a young age. And then in my late teens, early 20s, I started having spiritual experiences, some of which were memories of witnessing the crucifixion and being alive during
Oh,
that
wow.
time of Yeshua and feeling very personally affected by it. And then fast forward a few years, Christ actually appearing to me in the forest as just pure light. And I didn't tell anyone for a while. And then when I did start telling people close to me, I got rejection. And
Mhm.
I didn't become a Christian, funny enough. I went to a lot of churches. I tried to fit in, but I just never resonated with me. And then I found the Christ letters about 11, 12 years ago. And they clarified like he taught spiritual enlightenments. That's what occurred to him in the desert. And it was very much the science, the bridge between science and spirituality that I was looking for. And even to this day, it's been difficult for me to share some of my journey because it really confronts, some of the challenges that we have in our modern society. People are we're so attached to beliefs, and I think that applies to people who are in hiding. Like, for people who are dogmatically religious, it can be polarizing. Even the word Christ, you can have ideas on one end or the other, and immediately look at me
Right.
as crazy. So I'm mindful of that, and I totally know that some people probably just want nothing to hear about what I'm saying. But on the other hand, if I don't share and I don't share about my direct experiences, I know don't shine my light, there are people that I'm being of disservice to in not sharing my personal and profound voice and messages. So I appreciate very much the work that you're doing because I feel like it's so needed in this world. Like and I mean, my background too led me to Indigenous wellness, and I learned from so many other cultural and elders and things, and I feel like, you know, this is a common thread in around so many gifted people that I met is, and it's the opposite game that we have to play if we're going to run a business or, have any kind of impacts. We have to go against those early voices that told us like, don't make a sound, don't make any disturbance, don't rock the boat, stay quiet,
Right.
like
Be
just
good.
fit in, be good. Yeah, don't put your head up, like do what you're told. And yet we're in this time where like our world needs us more than ever to shine brightly and to be those beacons. So again, just really appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's very important. I think that we, like you said, we all shine our light, and one of the things that I work with clients on is realizing that, we're not for everybody.
Mhm.
Like that's totally fine. To expect that we are for every human on the planet is actually kind of crazy when we think about it, but it's like if we're hiding because we're afraid certain people are going to reject us who probably aren't our people, we're also preventing those people who are our people and who need our wisdom or medicine,
Mhm.
whatever we have to offer, then we're hiding that from those people too. So it's kind of like you have to just get to that place where you're like, some people are going to think I'm crazy, or they're going to think, what is she talking about? She's weird. And that's okay because
Yeah.
you learn how to hold yourself through it too, where you're kind of like, it's okay. Like my inner child can now handle the fact that, people say mean things on the internet sometimes about you, and that's okay. Those
Yeah.
aren't my people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that's such an important message, and there are people who are, I feel like almost like we have soul contracts on a level like where people are waiting for us to shine so they can really connect. Because I mean, a lot of people need to, I think what holds a lot of people back, correct me if I'm mistaken, there's this perception that, oh, like so and so such a good teacher, and they're in my similar vocation or niche, and they have such a powerful message, and then you end up like just maybe being in their shadow and
Hmm.
saying, oh, I'm not as important as that person, or, and I
Right.
feel like that can be a barrier. So there's a lot of beliefs that have to be kind of unfurled. So, what are some of the most profound transformations that you've seen in your work, either with yourself or with working with others through the unmuted method and all? It sounds very holistic what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think just, seeing how also like I'm thinking of one client, like she came to me focused on her business and just like really how she's been hiding for a lot of years. We've actually known each other for quite some time. Like we are trained in one of the same healing modalities, and but she's been struggling. And I think when she started, we worked together, she said she'd been holding on publishing her website for 5 years. And I was like, that is a very long time to, not be able to put that out and
Mhm.
move that forward in the world. And in just kind of one session where we did a belief deep dive and kind of some subconscious work, she said by like 2 weeks later, she'd already contacted her website guy who was doing the tech part of it for her. And she's like, here's the words, So she went from, that over analyzing and being really stuck, which 5 years is stuck for quite a while, to being like, oh, okay, I can actually, put this out here.
Mm.
And then she's gotten to the point she's actually starting, like, I wasn't sure when we started working together if she would ever dabble in video or anything like that. And she's been, starting to experiment with, she hasn't put it out there yet, but she's been like recording, and she took part in like a 5 day experience that I
Mm.
guided some people through, where it was like little mini visibility activities. Cause sometimes I find that could be really powerful to just like bite-sized things instead of like, I'm gonna, put the perfect 5 minute video on my
Mm.
homepage of my website. Like, oh, if I've never been on video before, that's a big step,
Yeah.
versus like, hey, in this group, just like share something about your day or something about a piece of work with a client. Like just vulnerably, just imperfectly record something. And just seeing that like transformation of her realizing, oh, like this actually isn't so awful, to start to, see myself on camera and work through all the weird things that come to with being on camera that most people have to work through. Cause it's like you see your own face, you're looking at yourself, and if you're just recording it on your phone, you're not even talking to anybody, which has always been kind of one of my biggest challenges when I just record videos, is like, I like people's energy, right? I like to feel as an energy person something coming back at me. And if I'm recording, it's like sitting there talking to myself on my phone, so you have to kind of, again, go through all these mindset shifts and be like, I'm really talking to another human being, even though I don't see that person, or they're not saying to me, wow, like what you just shared was super helpful. You kind of have to hack your brain a little bit to be like, yes, somebody is going to see this and say, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, you touched on a lot of the barriers that people face when they first start putting themselves out there. And I like how you talk about, we're not all built for this like aggressive social media kind of marketing. And there's other ways and approaches that we can connect with human beings. And I feel like connecting is really what people are looking for. And social media has become a lot more and more disconnected. I'm grateful, like we started a school community, and a lot of that has been really positive in the sense of like meeting people and having authentic connections that aren't part of just a scroll machine, and
Right.
connecting on a real level with people, and it's based on resonance. Like you said, the energetics there are important. Um, for people who are like, you know sensitive to the degree that you're talking about, like yourself, Lynn, what are some practical tools that maybe we can add some tips on the call, that can help them, whether it's like a particular technique that works really well for that shift. So they, is there anything that you could offer to, things that have worked really well for clients that you work with?
Yeah, definitely. We can maybe talk about just like a few simple nervous system tools. One of the first simple ones that I always like to start with, because, it's free, there's no equipment needed, is just to focus on our breathing.
Mm,
Because oftentimes when we get really anxious and stressed out, what do? We're wired to like start holding our breath or to
yep.
contract. And so like before we're going to do whatever that activity is, sometimes just it's as simple as being like conscious of your
Mhm,
breathing. And whether that's like, most people have heard of something called box breathing, but if
mhm,
you haven't, it's kind of that idea of counting, into a count of four, holding for a count of four, exhaling for four, and then holding for four. So you're kind of going around that square and spending, a few minutes just before you're going to do whatever that is,
mhm,
however you're going to put yourself out there. Whether that's a video, you're going to write a post that feels a little vulnerable and edgy and hitting publish, you're going to speak to a local community, maybe, just you have an opportunity to share your work. Like it can just be really helpful, because that starts to, again, it's all about signaling that safety to the body and the brain,
mm,
that like our especially if we're sensitive, our systems are going to think this is a wild tiger ready to eat me. and,
mm,
and that was certainly my experience of my body wanting to like run and hide in a bathroom and lock the door until certain situations were
mm,
over. And the more I could just help my system go, oh yeah, I can just breathe and
mm,
realize this is not something that's going to kill me. It feels a little scary or a little vulnerable or edgy, but I can breathe my way through it.
mhm.
Is really a powerful step. So that's kind of one of the simplest. And then I can also share a little bit of a second tool, which is something that comes from one of the healing modalities that I use in my work, called the body talk system. And I teach people something called the cortices technique. So it's a brain balancing technique. And basically, just in a nutshell, what it does is it helps to integrate the two hemispheres of your brain so that your right and your left hemisphere talk to each other better.
Okay.
When we're stressed, usually it's kind of like that divide in the middle of the brain, kind of the two halves separate a little bit and they don't talk together so well. So this is just a great tool that can help those two parts kind of come back together. It has a lot of other benefits as well, but the kind of on a brain nervous system level, that is kind of the key benefit. So if you'd like, and you can follow along with
Sure,
me.
I will.
Okay, so we're going to take one hand and you're going to have your fingers together, not spread. So you're going to put it at the back of your head, just where your neck and your skull kind of meet. And then your other hand, you're going to lightly tap kind of open-handedly and just take a deep breath. And then that tapping hand, you're going to come down and tap over your heart for another breath. And then that hand is going to come down and you're going to tap over your belly button. So you can't see my hand being that low, but you're kind of over your navel. And the breathing is important as well. And then this hand that's here, you're going to move it up. So it's kind of like you're covering the next portion of your skull, and it's going to repeat. So we're going to tap the head for a deep breath. We're going to tap the heart. And then when you're ready, tapping over the navel. And then that hand that's on the back of the head, again, kind of just comes up. And you can tap like right on top of the hand. If it feels kind of strange, you can go just like above, whatever feels best. Some people don't like the feeling of the tapping on their body if you're sensitive. So either way, then tapping on the heart. And then tapping on the belly. And then the hand that's still on the head, you're going to just come forward. And again, so you're kind of getting the pattern. We're tapping what we call the three brains: head, heart, and gut. Tapping that heart. And belly. And then you want to make sure when you're finishing that you're coming kind of in line with your eyebrows. So some people, it takes like 4 times of moving their hands. Some people, it takes 5. So I'm just kind of showing more the 5 position version, which can't hurt if you don't need 5 hand positions and you um, do it anyway. That's all good.
It's really interesting. I appreciate it very much because it reminds me of um, the importance of moving from like the flight or fight, the lower brainstem, into the prefrontal cortex, as well
Mm-hmm.
as, there's so much science to show like it correlates to emotional freedom technique, but I find this is simpler and easier to remember and
Do.
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last bit, you're just going to hold the sides of your head. And this is kind of I call it the limbic hug. So it's kind
Mm,
of, we're hugging the emotional
mm,
brain. So I always like to hold here for like an extra second or two, because for my brain, it's like, ah, yay, I
mm,
love you, limbic
mm,
brain.
mm.
And then one hand is going to tap again. It doesn't matter which. Yeah, I think the genius of this technique is that it is very simple,
Mm.
so that people can usually learn it in 1 to 2 times. It's not, EFT can be amazing, but yeah, sometimes it's like, which point comes next? What am
Yeah.
I doing? It's a little too complicated. And then you're just going to seal it with the finishing of your limbic hug. All right.
I definitely feel a state shift, feel much more relaxed and yeah, peaceful. That's awesome, Lynn. Thank you for sharing. Did you come up with this method yourself?
No, I'm trained in it. A
Okay.
man named John Veltheim is the founder of
Okay.
the body talk system.
Okay.
But this is a technique that he particularly wants, like, he wanted everyone to be able to share. So it's like if you come across somebody and you're like, hey, I think this would help you,
Mm,
it's not something you have to even be a practitioner of the
yeah,
system to use this particular tool or to tell it to, to show it to someone else.
that's
It's
awesome.
just meant to be kind of, and it's so powerful that there was a nurse that learned it, and she worked in a coma ward,
Okay.
and she went back to the hospital, and she did it at the end of her shift on 5 patients who were in persistent comas. The next day she came in, and I can't remember whether it was 3 or 4 of them woke up
No
overnight.
way. Wow.
So
That's
pretty, and
amazing.
everybody was like, nobody knew she had done that right at the end of
Mm,
her shift. So people were like, why are all these people waking up? What's
wow.
going on? This is like wild. And she
Wow.
came back and she was like the next day, like, whoa, that's so
I'm
I
gonna,
always
I'm
say
gonna
if
teach this to my to Julia and our daughter Luciana because I feel Luciana is a very sensitive little girl and she's very active little girl. She's 2. And I know that sometimes she just needs co-regulation. So like I'll bounce her to sleep now. Like we've been night weaning her and stuff. And I need simple things to show her because like something like tamping is too and I can even I imagine do this for her.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for a
that's
small child, you can certainly put your hands, like you're doing it with your
mm,
hands on her head. I've done it on animals too. Like
amazing.
you can hold, I've done it for my dog a couple
Mm,
times when he's been agitated and you just, hold, and usually they respond super quick.
really,
Kids and
eh?
animals are just
Okay.
like shift really fast because, it's like they don't have all the layers that we've created over however many years of our lifetime. They're just kind of in that
Yeah.
more innocent state, and it's
Yeah.
like, boom.
Yeah. Well, the medicine wheel teachings are that, true elders, the ones who have done their work over a lifetime, and children are the closest to the spirit realm, because their veils are thinner. And so, yeah, that's powerful. Well, I really appreciate you sharing the technique, and I'm sure our listeners do as well. It's funny, ever since when I learned EFT and tapping, when I was in college studying Indigenous wellness, I immediately started sharing it with people. I just found it was super valuable. I taught it, I would use it every time I had to do like any kind of talking or an interview or something I was nervous about, a test or something. And, it's interesting, these techniques, I find the most simple ones, like breathing, like box breathing, just connecting the breath, are often the most profound. Sometimes we overcomplicate things and we need to, I need to read these 10 books to become a master energy facilitator
Yes.
to be well. And it's like, no, sometimes you just need to take your shoes off and go for a walk in nature and do some deep breathing and just, calm down.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much we try to overcomplicate things. Or,
Yes.
I mean, even I do that sometimes as a practitioner, thinking, oh, I need to give like people more, oh, I
Mm,
need to give them like 50 tools, not
mm,
50, but, a lot. And then sometimes it's like, no, actually, that can be really overloading to people because
yeah.
then you're like, I have like 30 things that I could do, and I don't know which one to pick. Like maybe if you only have a
Mm,
smaller toolbox where you have 5 or 10 things that work really well,
yeah.
it's a little easier than being like, I don't know, should I do A or B or Z or L? I don't
Mm.
know. It's too many things.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. I think there's so much profoundness in that and keeping it. Someone said recently, because I've always thought like, I didn't like keep it simple, stupid, and then I heard it was like keep it super simple. But someone says recently, keep it simple and spiritual, and I was like, oh, that's good. I think
Nice.
and when I hear spirit too, it's like spirit is the breath. Like one of our teachers that we worked with, Dr. Sue Morter, she talks about like being the breath as it travels through the body. And I find that a really interesting practice because a lot of people will identify in the areas that we were focusing on, Lynn, like in the head, people will be in there identified as the brain. And we know, like, for those who are keeping up with the times or just sensitively attuned, like we need that heart mind coherence. We need to be in the full body because the full body has a consciousness. Plus, there's our other energetic subtle bodies, and for true coherence, all of those are expressing. And sometimes we just need these little shifts, like doing this kind of work to help us remember and be grounded and centered, and not want to leave Dodge and get off the planet because things are intense and it
Yep.
seems like you're in isolation because it seems like the world has gone crazy, but that's just I feel like part of the perspective shifts that are happening, the paradigm shifts we're going through as a species and as a world. What is your higher vision of our world, and what, as an energetically sensitive person, what do you see, as a reflection of the time, and what would you love to see made manifest in our world?
I mean, I would just love to see people, taking their unique gifts and talents. And, it's amazing to when I encounter different clients to see what those are. Like everybody has kind of
Mm,
their own special flavor of magic and gifts,
mm,
and just like really putting it out there so that the people can find that. And I think the thing that I find so sad is there's so many like gifted healers and people out there that because they don't want to come across as salesy, or they have these wounds, it's like
Mm,
they're hiding. And then it's like there's all these people actually who aren't the ethical people that are getting the business, who are helping people, but really they're not the ones helping people. They're just the ones that, want to make a bunch of money and they don't care about the results.
mhm,
So for me, like I'm really passionate about like helping those people who are the heart-centered people who I know like they do amazing work, to realize like, yeah, what you do is amazing. People just need to find you
mm.
because, like there's a lot too, I think, around selling that needs to shift in this
Yeah,
world too. And that's something that I've had to kind of work through too. Cause in the
yeah,
beginning, it was like sales feels icky. It
yeah,
feels like it's wrong. It feels wrong to, make money off of healing. I mean, there's so much conditioning, I think, around that with
yeah,
healers. Like healers shouldn't charge for their services.
yeah.
No, that's crazy. I
That
mean,
is
you
crazy.
you you have to, you still have to eat, you still have to,
Yeah,
have a house to live in, you have to have all of these
yeah,
things, and the people out there that don't really care about like that, their clients, those aren't my people. Like my people are the ones
yeah,
who are so driven by like, I just want to help people and I
yeah,
would do it for free,
yeah.
which I
And a
feel
lot of
that
them have
way.
done it for free. I know I myself have given so many sessions away for free. And the challenge with that is that, often it's not valued in the same way. People just have like they'll have a transformation, they'll be like, "Oh, that was great." And they don't even remember what shifted, so that without
Right.
that mutual reciprocity, I hear you. Yeah.
Yep. There needs to be that, like you said, that kind of exchange or that understanding, because otherwise people are just like, oh, hey, well, that was nice. That was free. Like I don't really realize how profound that was for
Hmm.
me. And,
Hmm.
I think the more our society can learn to value, the deep power of healing work, it's so important. I mean,
Yeah.
if we all did our healing work, the planet would be such a better place. I mean, some people that's not their path and they're not on that growth path, but I'm always drawn to the people who are like evolving and growing
Yeah.
and want to become a better human, whatever
Yes.
that looks like for them.
Yeah. You know, I've invested a lot to learn some entrepreneurial skills, and selling and marketing have been, I mean, those are essentially without selling and marketing, you don't really have any business. And it's taken me a lot to learn that. And it still is a challenge in ways. Recently, just a couple days ago, I was contemplating this deeply, and I realized like when we talk about offers, I mean, that's what you're putting out there in the marketing, and then you're getting on to see if I mean, really a sales call is really a call to see, can I help this individual and can I serve them? And to do that deeper inner transformation, yeah, you can have a session, but so much of the work of going through transformation or healing, it's the integration. Like you can have, a lot of people are looking to, for the bypass, they're looking for the pill, they're going to take the substance that's going to give them this mind-altering experience, and then a lot of people don't come back from that, unfortunately, I think, especially if the container is not held well. But also it is so important, the integration after, like it's the journey of bringing all those aspects back and comprehending the meaning, because so much of who we really are is so expansive. To bring it into the form, to bring it into the body where we can still be acclimatized to the reality of the times we're in and not be ungrounded, as I feel like a lot of people who are dabbling in the spiritual realms are like, they're just not grounded. They're not doing the
True.
pragmatic work, and those realms are more, they're they're lighter, and they feel more easeful. However, I feel like every one of us who came to Earth in some way, whether you're a warning or an example, you are here to serve some purpose in contributing. And so that work of being seen and heard is kind of where the starting point for a lot of people. I would imagine you've probably seen a lot of people move more into freedom, because when you start being seen and your offers can be um, you know, uh, accepted, then you start transforming people, and then you also get the benefit of income, which can lead to more freedom and choices in your life. So that must be a benefit from doing the work that you do. Lynn?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I would say, most of my people are more impact driven, but again, like our conversation just a moment ago, it's like we still need to be able to fulfill our needs and,
Hmm.
live life and to
Yeah.
see people, grow their number of clients and feel more confident or just even feel more confident in who they are. Like it
Yeah.
ripples, obviously, how we show up in one way is how we show up in all ways usually. So
Yeah.
usually people who are a little hesitant to put themselves out there in business, probably in certain aspects of their life, maybe personal relationships, they're also a little hesitant to
Mm,
fully speak their truth, to fully allow themselves to say, no, that's not going to work for me or set boundaries. And so
mm,
it ripples too, where people can feel more confident in being like, I'm going to say this to a family member, or I'm going to, not allow certain patterns that I just thought I had to tolerate. So
yeah.
it's beautiful because it is, yes, I'm focused on it from the business lens, but it really ripples
In
to all
all areas.
areas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful point. When you start doing this kind of work, it doesn't just affect the thing you were, what you thought was your goal. It affects the other, especially when it's really soul aligned in your authenticity. We had a wonderful guest a few episodes ago who was talking about confidence, and she brought up the key distinction of she teaches how to be authentically yourself in front of the camera and really beautiful presence. And she was saying, when you're truly authentically confident, it just feels like being yourself. When you actually feel confident, that's a good clue that maybe you're being in your ego. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. And one thing I forgot to mention this. Like, in my contemplation, I was thinking, well, an offer. Usually we're offering a gift. We're not offering an ultimatum to people. I guess you could offer an ultimatum, but usually, as good-hearted human beings, I feel like that's our true nature, unless we're pinched off from source a little bit. Um, we're offering something of value, and for it to really be received, when it is received, there's mutual reciprocity. There's a gratitude that comes with a cherishing of that gift, and so I feel like that's a conversation that is important to have in sales, because getting on those calls with people and offering what you're offering and having, knowing the value of it, and then knowing that, if you undercharge for something, you're also diminishing the value of it, because the perceived value of it is perceived. If you have a product that's life transforming, I've worked with some community members that are, because I do conscious community co-creation and do some guidance work as well. And um, this one really beautiful man who's building a community all around holistic health and lifestyle design. He wanted to charge $500 for like working with him for 4 months in this deep like
Wow.
dive of stuff. And I'm like, man, you gotta at least charge 1,000. Like, you have to, like, you can't charge 500 for this. I just want to get you over that mark, so that
Yeah.
then you're going to see the work, and you're going to be like, yeah, if you start doing the math, it's like.
How
But I feel like
much?
a lot
Yeah.
of spiritual people who are wanting, like you said, that impact will undervalue, because I mean, without going to the story of where you think that comes from, what do you think is the most important message that you would say to people who are feeling in that way, who are feeling maybe stuck or in analysis or hiding, like you said, Lynn? What would be your message to them, and why it's important to grow in that way?
I mean, I think, again, it just comes back to like, well, that idea, that age old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So
Mm.
like, to go to that person you were saying wanting to do however many months for $500, I mean, to me, I think about, okay, how many hours of work would I be offering, in that time frame? I would imagine, maybe weekly support. I
Two
mean,
a
that's
week.
2 a week. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe like 8 hours a month
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that. I mean, to me, I just think about like energetically, I can't sustain,
Right. That's what I told
that
them. So
that
you're gonna burn,
level.
man.
Yeah, it's too depleting,
Mhm.
and I've had people when, there's people that certainly charge more than I do, and sometimes people see, what I charge and they compare it to, another practitioner, and they're like, "Oh, that's a lot." And I'm like, I know I'm not wired to help, 30 people in a week. Like
Right.
that's not my energetic
Hmm.
capacity. Like I like to work with, maybe 6 to 8 people
Yeah,
in a week and
that's
really have
reasonable.
that spaciousness and, space for me caring for my own self,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
think that's another
It's
important part of the
essential.
conversation, right? Like if we're
Yeah.
healers or, spiritual leaders, we need to tend to ourselves.
Hmm.
So, if I'm only going to see 6 people in a week and I'm going to, do what this person was going to do. I mean, how many people would you really have to see in order to
Mm.
be able to just pay your bills
Yeah.
and, have food on your table? And yeah, it's just, it's not sustainable. I would burn out probably within 2 months
Yeah.
of doing something like that. So just
Yeah.
really realizing that, like all of that belief that we've been told about, money being bad or evil, or, spiritual people don't care about money. I mean, again, that's just all conditioning. You
Mm.
can choose to believe what you want to believe.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other thing that I always think about is the more that I, as, a spiritual and conscious person, am successful, like the more I can channel money into places that benefit other
Yeah.
people, in a very conscious and good way. So I can help and donate to charity, so it's better that I'm sustaining myself and, serving from overflow so I can put money in good places instead of just people who are just like, I just want all this money so I can buy, a big fancy house and 10 new cars and, whatever crazy ideas people have. I mean, if that's your goal, that's
Nothing wrong with
okay.
it. I mean,
But,
consciousness can
that's,
experience, but I hear you. It's not always the most
that's,
impact.
yeah, exactly. It's also remembering that you can use like the money that you're earning
Mm.
for good, to care for yourself, to care for your
Mm.
family, and to channel it into very valuable causes in the world, because
Yeah.
there are so many of
Oh,
them
totally.
out there.
Yeah. There's so much importance in what you're saying, Lynn. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That
Oh, no.
I feel like it's to me it's such an important conversation to realize that having a healthy relationship with money. This is something that I feel like my soul chose to go through some vicissitudes and challenges, and grow up through, recessions and things, to see the impacts of poverty consciousness, because it affects so many people. I think it's a lot of the time what leads to quiet desperation and people feeling unworthy and just not enough. And you know recently my partner Julia found this really wonderful woman's book, Sarah McCrum, and we've met her a couple times, and it talks about love money, money loves you. And it talks about the consciousness of money and how it's a much more expansive view of money than the current fiat currency that most of us use. And it talks about money as, really the exchange that's happening, the interconnection between all of us. It's what allows us to develop relationships. And when we realize that money can be seen as a partner to do some of these initiatives, part of my dream that came about 20 years ago, and is this idea of a world where we're all doing what we truly love and sharing in the abundance. And I think physically, the inspiration that came through later was seeing physical community centers around the globe that where we gather, because out here in the West, I find it's alienating in a way, right? Like, and I think it's the paradigm of that came, the colonizers that came, there was the kings and the castle that all had their castle, and people came here and they're like, well, I want to be the king of my own castle. And so we all created these boxes and then went in them. And now with like screen addictions and, all these challenges that keep people in these boxes, we don't see children playing in the same way. And since becoming parents, I feel like conscious parents, you know, this idea of true community where, yes, we have our private places that we have our families or whatever, but having communal centers where we can gather and cook foods together and have events together and celebrate, that aren't, government, you know, regulated, but really by the people for the people, I feel is, a beautiful vision of how we're kind of meant to be, almost like bees. Like we share together, we go do our own thing, and then we come back. I feel like we're happier and healthier when we have that kind of connection. But without, thriving ourselves, what we found in our quest for a lot of conscious community is, without people doing that inner work of regulating themselves, doing the inner work, doing the energetics, deepening their connection with themselves, you can't have a community with a lot of wounded people, because then you have a lot of people who are looking to extract from a community rather than to contribute. So the work
Right.
that, again, back to your work, I feel like, you know, taking those brave steps to start shining, and then that allows you to come into more of a fuller expression of yourself. It leads to helping to plant those seeds in an era where we're all, back to alignment, where we are like the songbirds, rejoicing in just creation itself, in the breath itself, not needing to have the mansions and the 10 cars, like you said. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Coming back. And I love that idea of creating more community because, yeah, we do live in a world that's so isolating and, we need more of that. Like we're
Hmm.
not put on this planet, I don't think, to be in our little boxes, like you said. I
Yes.
think, we do better. We do thrive and create more when we have connection with other people. So we're not meant to just stay stuck in our little houses in front of our screens, especially. That's
Yes. So it's so true. And on that note of community, Lyn, you're certainly welcome to Light Our Vision on School. It's a place where you can soulfully promote what you're doing. So if you feel called, you are certainly welcome. I feel like that theme of community is so resonant with a lot of people nowadays, especially after the craziness of the last 5 or 6 years or so, and
yeah.
and just recognizing how damaging it is when we are isolated from one another. So really appreciate your voice. How can people find more about what you do and to connect with you, and what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can find my website, which is
Oh, I like
heartfirehealingllc.com.
that. Heart, fire,
Yeah.
healing. Cool.
Yeah, but make sure you have the LLC. Somebody else has the heartfirehealing.com, and it's not a
Okay.
very pretty website, and it's not me.
Okay.
And I can share with you too. There's a free gift that if people would
Okay.
like, I have like a embodied expression activation. It's just like a 5-minute audio where I kind of guide you through a little visualization practice
Okay.
before whatever you'd like to, put out in the world. So we can
Wonderful.
have a little link to that. And then people can also just find me on social media. On Instagram, I'm Heartfire Healing, or you can find me by my full name on Facebook, and happy to connect that way as well.
That's wonderful, Lyn. We'll certainly put that in the show notes. And I before we close today, I always ask our inspiring guests, and I really appreciate you being on the show today as one of those. If you had a magical megaphone and could talk to everyone in the world, and everyone could hear you, and you would be seen by everyone all at once, let's say for you in your case, what would you like to share?
I think I'd love to just share with people that, their voice matters. Like, I think we touched on that a little earlier in the conversation of how we get caught in that idea that somebody else might say it better, or somebody has more experience, or, all the stories we make out about, oh, well, my mentor, they've had 50 years of experience
Mm,
with this. It's like, yeah, but nobody is you. Like there
mm,
are people who need you exactly.
mm,
So, when we compare ourselves constantly to
mm,
somebody else and think, well, why should I say this? Because it's already been said and somebody
mm,
else can say it better. Like that, somebody else may, they may have heard that message from 10 other people in a different way and it didn't land. And then you say it in your unique, special way. And they're like, oh, I
mm,
get it now,
mm,
So don't let that be like the stopping point because, I mean, there's tons of people out there that talk about visibility. I could let that stop me and be like, who am I to be, some expert on visibility when,
mm.
it's not like I've done a TEDx talk or something like that,
Right,
right?
right.
I could make a story about that, but
Hmm, hmm,
nobody comes from my particular life experience. Nobody
hmm,
has my story. And when people hear my story, maybe for somebody, it's like, yeah, I really resonate because you were bullied and I was bullied. And, I feel that resonance. And
hmm.
I think, I can shift something because of that.
Yeah. So, so, so important. What a valuable message. Thank you. And I feel like someone on the other end of us, even if it's just one person who needs to hear that, really, really important message. Yeah, we're all, I feel like we're all important. I listened to like Wayne Dyer talking about how, special is kind of a dumb thing. It's like either we're all special or, and then what's the case of special? But
Right.
I love the word important, and I feel like we are all important. And in the trap of comparison, that can get lost, especially when we've been indoctrinated and into certain systemic ways of thinking and certain institutions and things like this education system. We're almost put in a position of constantly comparing ourselves to one another from grades and all these things. So super valuable message, Lynn. Before I invite our daughter, Luciana, to thank us all for watching, and we need to update our video. Hopefully it'll be the
Oh.
last one of the last winter ones because now it's springtime here. Um, do you have anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I just hope that, something in this touched your heart and just, that it sparks you to share your message a little bit more boldly or more vulnerably and just,
Yeah.
let that matter. Let that
Mm,
radiate out into the world because you have gifts and
mm.
everyone needs someone's magic out there.
Yeah, yeah. So true, so true. I really appreciate you. Certainly, I've had my heart touched a few times in the conversation, especially around so much of what you had to share is just really valuable and important, and what people what we need to remind one another of during these times where people are maybe choosing fear and polarity. We need to remind one another that each of us is important and our unique perspectives and experiences are important. So thank you, Lynn, for being a champion of that and for helping the people you do, and for yourself and to all those you touch. Highest blessings and best wishes.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, please keep in touch and let us know, and we'll be sure to add all those things to the show notes as well. So thanks again.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right. Well, Luciana is up here, so let's uh let's welcome her again in her playful ways.
For watching.
Tiki Rockton.
Say have a great day.
Have a good day.
I love you.
I love
See you soon.
you. Soon.
Hey, bye. Nacho. Mwah.